demand, there's a 5 to 7 year wait. And so alternative methods for developing transformers need to happen like ASAP, but there's 3 big ones in the world, and it's, GE, Vernova, Mitsubishi Heavy Industries, Siemens. The guy that runs the entire unit for power generators, transformers, electrical grid for Mitsubishi, he was there too. He's like, how do I get involved in this? So I think the timing is like perfect, and this place has that natural asset that is the bulk of the operating cost of these data centers once you've bought the GPUs and built the building. So I think it's a natural, and I think so that's a big area.
And sorry, did you want to add something there, Nicholas?
I want to build on what Bill said. You have such an amazing advantage in Western Australia, and it's not just Perth, clearly. It's like the full valley. And so I come from Silicon Valley, and the name Silicon Valley was based from semiconductor, which has served Silicon Valley so well. And I feel like if you think about Western Australia, the lowest cost potential for energy, renewable green energy, I feel like you could coin this place, this unique place, and I'm falling in love with it.
Here it comes. This is going to be defining for the next 25 years.
I don't know, but I feel like narratives and branding matters, and you could call yourself the Electron Valley. And if you think about from atoms to bits, you need these electrons. And if you think about powering the next century of intelligence, you need these electrons. And this region has such an amazing advantage of know-how and expertise in materials, and materials that becomes energy. And this bottleneck we just discussed about the grid and everything else.
Down to the rare earths to make all these chips.
Yeah.
That's all here.
By the way, you need rare earths for wind turbines. I mean, you have all this know-how, which is really special. You have these beautiful resources. And when I was at West Tech 2 days ago listening, it feels like we're losing the best entrepreneurs to Sydney, to Silicon Valley, and so on. But if you find the right branding and you really tap on your superpowers, your super know-how, entrepreneurs will come to Perth. They will actually decide to come here because they understand this is where you power the intelligence of the future, the inference and the training of this AI model. So I just feel like this Electron Valley, maybe you find a better word, but I think there is something very meaningful about Western Australia to position yourself and to brand yourself in a way that entrepreneurs and even incumbents like NVIDIA and Microsoft, they want to come here because this is the best place to come.
Yeah, and look at what's happened over the last, 50, 60 years to the Middle East, because they had the prior generation of source of energy, right? Energy is GDP. There is an exact correlation between energy and GDP. And if you think about monetary systems, what is money? What's savings? It's stored productivity. And so if you can basically become the Saudi Arabia of the next generation of energy production, I mean, this is already pretty wealthy place, to be honest, but it's going to step function up.
So it's
but time is now.
Yeah, it has.
So
it's
it was
happening
iron
now.
ore, then it was LNG, so now it's going to be hyperscaler enablers. And I guess the positive there is that we've got telecommunications cables running up to Asian markets where they need it. So as in my work, where there's a lot of hyperscalers or data center builders that are trying to sell to hyperscaler customers, the cheap, reliable power. And actually, gas is an enabler to renewables. And I guess in our state, it's still there and it's still providing value. So in Western Australia, we have a gas reservation policy. So 15% of gas has to be reserved for WA. The East Coast, that doesn't happen. So we're even more of an opportunity for these hyperscalers in WA. And I think before I go to you, Harry, the challenge is the grid, but that's where when there's challenges and problems. Okay, there we go. Bit of tech challenge there. There's opportunities. So if the grid is a problem, how do we work around the grid? How do we go off grid? How do we go behind the meter? How do we power 90% of a data center requirement for AI without having to rely on Western power? So let's challenge that. Now, my question to you was, is the connectivity between Perth and Singapore good enough to provide inference? capability.
Anyone who's kind of in this space might know that one of those subsea cables is currently damaged. So that tells you that probably diversity needs to be improved. But Western Australia is in a really good spot for this connectivity. Just to give an example, the latency take kind of center of Southeast Asia, Bangkok to Western Australia, round trip latency is about 50 milliseconds. That's essentially imperceptible to a human. So training's one thing, and having monstrous AI factories to do training of these models is great, and Western Australia is a really good fit for that because they don't need to be close to a population source. But even for inference, right, Western Australia with improved connectivity to Asia through improvements in those big fibers. You know, Microsoft, for example, has just done this across the continental US. They've invested a huge amount in fabric across the continent to link up all these different data centers. WA could do the same and provide a huge amount of AI inference power to Asia in exactly the same way. So that would be my encouragement.
So Harry, what do we need to make that happen for Western Australia to really be a leader in this?
I think, like every country, state, there's regulatory challenges and government frameworks that we have to operate in. So getting those vested parties on board and getting them to understand the vision of Electron Valley and going to Asia, I think is exactly the right plan. Yeah. Just keep saying it, it'll happen.
It's going to snowball from here.
Hashtag Electron Valley.
That was a very inspiring dinner conversation that's inspired you. The creative juices are flowing. So yeah, I think you're right, Paula, really good question. What will it take to make it work? And I think it's really careful consideration. There's use cases in the regional remote areas, as we've talked about. There's use cases that are in the Perth metropolitan area. And there's also, yes, there's training and inference opportunities here, but there's also sovereign capability for defence, for AUKUS, for what's going on with the Square Kilometre Array, with XMouth. There's a lot of use cases where a lot of that can be developed locally. So we have a couple of minutes left. Any final thoughts on inspiring the innovation ecosystem in this room? Bill?
You know, a lot of life, there's a Woody Allen saying, 80% of life is just showing up. And we're all here. And this is the place. And then there's another quote that I sometimes say, which is, you'd rather be lucky than smart, right? But being smart is putting yourself in the path of luck. And all of that is like right here, right now. There is a 25 to 30 year build out right in front of this spot, you know, the whole West Coast and northern part. And like you said, this could be the center point. Like every single hyperscaler that understands what you just said is going to want to run all of their AI factories in Western Australia because there's not that many bodies consuming the electricity. There's a lot of electricity, and it's one fiber hop away from, I don't know, 3 billion people. It's like this is going to be a spot if people start now. So I think a lot of it's just getting started. So let's do that little Doug thing, and then 200 megawatts, and then 900, and then 3 gigawatts, and this place will be like Saudi Arabia of electricity.
I want to, again, I'm going to build on Bill, but you talk about 20 to 50 years, you talk about starting now, and I think this is what we discussed over dinner yesterday, which is this combination of being patient and impatient. You need to be patient, which is you need to invest today, but it will take 10, 20 years to see your returns. And you have a sense of purpose where